Hello everyone and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have the Acer Multimedia Desktop PC from 2008 back on the bench. The reason I say back on the bench is because this particular system was already featured in the OEM e-waste haul video right there. If you haven't checked it out, please do so, where we went over 3 individual PCs to determine whether they were trash or treasure or somewhere in between. Now, the reason this PC is on the bench is because it was the most requested. It was something that in the comments, people had continued to say, I'd like to see that in another video, can you do a restoration on it? Various comments. And of course, the thing about these older computers is there's so many different things you can do with them depending on at what age group they're in, what year they were released and what particular hardware that came with them. So in today's video, we're going to go over this computer one more time, kind of get reacquainted with what the computer is and determine a course of action to go forward. So you know what? We always have lots to do. Let's get right to it. Here we have the Acer Multimedia Desktop logo at the very top, and I just love this case design. I like the look of it, and it's in such great shape, especially from being in 2008. Very dirty, but nothing we can't get cleaned up. And you can see the system is quite hefty in its own right and quite heavy. So, I mean, it's built very well for an OEM system, and the fact that it has quite a bit of heft to it as well. And I mean, it very closely resembles what you would do in terms of a custom OEM case you'd buy, and then, customize it, put a motherboard in and go what have you. And the nice thing about Acer in this particular case, it seems like they kept true to the standards versus going and, putting in different types of form factors in these systems. So, making it slightly upgradable. So the other thing that people had noticed on the system, and something I had called out as well in the video, is it still has the original plastics on all of the piano black. You can see that here. And one of the very common things on these systems, or given the age of it, is you get piles of scratches all over the piano black. But it's not just on that. We also have all the plastics are still all on this kind of chrome bezel design. So whoever owned this computer before it was tossed to e-waste, kept most of the plastics and all the trim pieces, which is, basically unheard of, based on the age of the system being 17 years old. So in this system, we may as well just go over it real quickly again to kind of give everybody an idea what we have and what we're working with. So we do have a drive bay here, 5.25 drive, and we do have the label flash technology. That's similar to the LightScribe technology that was out by Hewlett Packard at the time. And it does look to be a DVD RW Super Multi drive, so DVD writer, CD RW, etc. So nice to see that populated. The second bay does not have anything currently populated, but does say optical media disk bay. So you do have the ability to utilize that expansion if needed. Down here, we do have media expansion bay. So we have our SD cards, we have our Sony Pro cards, we have our compact flash, we have a 1394 Firewire connection in the front USB as well. So these were very common back then, replacing the floppy drives back in the day, having that media expansion bay, they called it, but usually have multi-card readers, and they came in different form factors and allowed you to be able to plug them in. So if you were an OEM builder, you could buy these and pop them in based on what the motherboard supported. So on the front, we do have what looks like some additional case badging and stickers. I like the fact that these aren't taken off. Some of them can be quite overwhelming in some of these systems that I've shown where there's tons of OEM stickers all over the computer, but in this particular case, it seems to be fairly reserved. We have a sticker that says Dolby Home Theater, so probably because of the audio capabilities of this particular system. We have AM 5700 E5720A model information. It says we have a Q8200 Intel Core 2 quad processor, so right out of the box, and we did verify that that's what's inside the system. We will not be upgrading that today. I'll be sticking to the existing CPU that's in this computer, but knowing that we could potentially upgrade that if required. We do have 4 gigabytes of DDR2 memory that we will be upgrading. we do have a 640 gigabyte SATA hard disk that is fully functional. The good old spinning rust that's installed in here. Now, I did go into the computer already, and I'm going to talk about that later, and get the recovery from it. I was not able to find it on archive.org, so I will be uploading it there as well for anybody who may have this system. We have a super multi-drive. We also have McAfee Internet Security Trial as part of the package. As well, we have the Windows, Vista, and Intel Core VIIV inside. Along the top, which is actually very interesting as well, and this is something I've shown on camera in one of my previous videos, is how dirty this particular system is. So we do have the power button that's up here, but we also have a place that you would think that you could put something on, but you can open it right up. And you can see, I mean, yeah, it's fairly dirty, but you can put an external hard disk in here, no problem, and hook it up to one of the 4 accessible USB ports by running the cable through this opening. I mean, I think that's so convenient, protecting the drive. And of course, by having that cover on top, you can put something else on top if you want it. But having an external hard disk installed, plugged in as, you know, a storage media bay or something would be pretty cool. Plus you have a couple of audio ports that are accessible to the end user as well, without having to move the computer around quite a bit to get to it. On the side, we do have the Acer logo that's ingrained in the side of the case. Other than dirt, there doesn't seem to be a lot of any, or if any, damage to the side of the computer, which is nice. We have a lot of different regulatory information, you know, the release date and all that stuff is here. It says manufacturing date. It does say March 2009. So I did say 2008 earlier. Now, this particular system, based on what I researched online, was initially released in 2008. So this system might have been just a later, slightly later model. Okay, along the back, we have our power supply, which looks to be a little dirty. We're going to address that in the video. We're going to get it all cleaned out. And we have a couple of PS2 ports. We have our serial port, which is still nice to have. I mean, even newer applications today, people are still hunting these down for industrial applications. We have our VGA port. We have 4 additional USB. So you have 4 plus your 4 on the top. That's 8, plus you still have the one in the card reader. You have 9 USB ports back in 2008 and 2009. It's pretty awesome. We have another 1394 FireWire connection, again, the larger input. We also have our integrated NIC. We have additional 6 audio ports, so giving you that Dolby sound, so based on your speaker setup. And we have a DVI connection along the back. So we have integrated VGA and, of course, DVI. And I believe this is a Braco card based on the chipset that we have to have the DVI output. We have a whole pile of different ventilation here. You can put additional, it doesn't look like it's populated, but we can have additional ventilation. And then of course the back, we do have that populated. That is our optical audio, which is nice to have as well. Okay, let's get this turned around. We have our Acer logo again. We have additional ventilation in this area, and you can't have enough ventilation in any computer, which I think is great. Taking the side off. And here we are with the case off the side, and I have not touched this computer at all since the last video, so we're going to be going into this start from the finish. And our whole idea of today's video is to get this all completely cleaned up inside and get this system restored. So let's get this kind of camera angle switched around and get the tower set up on the bench properly so we can start working on this computer. Okay, here we are with the computer all arranged on the side to give us a little more accessibility into what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is just remove this tunnel. This is like an airflow tunnel going to the outside of that case where you saw all that ventilation available. Now, I could just remove the CPU first. I'm going to remove the tunnel first just to kind of get it out of my way. This is something that is debatable. A lot of people have said to me, you know, you really don't need to keep that on there. It's just kind of a, you know, dirt sucker or whatever, and it's better to have airflow differently. Now, I will probably end up restoring it the way it is, just because, well, that's the way it came, and that's what I like to do. So that's what we're going to do in this particular case, I believe. And continue taking this off. There we are, one at a time. So it looks like the tunnel itself can just come apart and come off of that. Yeah, so that can actually come off if I want to. I can move these little latches out and then separate that tunnel from the fan if I want to do that, which is probably what I'm going to do instead of leaving this big contraption there. I know I went against what I just said, but now that I know I can take that completely off and keep it clear, I'm probably going to keep it like that. Okay, let's remove that out of there. All right, let's pop out some memory off the board so we don't do any damage as we're moving things. Pretty straightforward to take the RAM out. And this motherboard does come with the 4 slots, which is beautiful, having the 4 memory expansions. So I do have additional memory. I have additional 2 gigabyte sticks. So I'm hoping to get this upgraded to the 8 gigabytes that it deserves. Continuing on, we do have that card. We have that DVI card, breakout card. So sure enough, we have a DVI add-in card version 1. So this just goes off the chipset on the motherboard, adds a little bit more functionality, and allows that DVI pass-through for, well, HD interface. So it's nice. So I'll take that out as well. We'll end up putting that back in. So here is our infrared, and I'm just going to pull the wire off of that. And noting that the, it's probably, yeah, it is keyed, so I'm not too worried about it. But I'm taking that off and removing it from the motherboard down the bottom, just to have that removed so we can remove the motherboard. Okay, now, of course, this is piles and piles of USB cables, but what's currently in our way is all these power wires. So I'm going to remove the SATA power from the hard disk on the back. There we are. And let's just see what else we have going on here. We have tons of wires hanging out. We have our ATX connector to the motherboard. We'll remove that as well. We got that removed. Remove the SATA power from the back of the optical drive. We have that removed now. And we'll also remove, there we are. We'll remove our SATA cable, our data cable from the back of the optical, as well as from the back of the hard disk. Okay, I'm just gonna pop those right out of the motherboard. Pretty simple. Okay, that's all done. Yeah, so you can see it's pretty easy to remove everything from a computer, but when it comes to building it, you got to be a little more particular. Okay, so we have all these wonderful, remember all those USB ports we saw at the very top of the system running down? They all interface to the computer, and they're all tied together with these kind of like clip ties that we have on. So let's see if I can remove them. Now, using the toolless design that we have in front of us, I'm just going to move that back and slide this hard drive out. This is the hard disk that that came with this computer. So it is a Western Digital 640 gigabyte SATA drive, 16 megabyte cache. I'm going to be upgrading this to an SSD as part of the performance upgrade I'm going to be doing to this computer. So now we have the motherboard to contend with. So we have our wires that are plugged in down the bottom. I'm just going to pull them out and unplug them. So thank goodness, it's one of those designs that's just one harness that plugs into one connector to the motherboard, as opposed to having, all the individual wires you're having to contend with as you're trying to plug everything back in. Okay, let's see if we can get all these kind of screws removed. The one up the top right here. Okay, so the motherboard, you just kind of lean back, slide out, and pull it out. Now, it was just kind of hung up down on that last standoff, but we were able to remove it. So there we are. We have our motherboard removed. It is quite dirty. We are going to be replacing that coin cell as well, because no doubt that is dead, and applying new thermal paste here to the heatsink assembly. But yeah, outside of that, we'll look at all the caps and do a thorough inspection to make sure that all looks good as well while we restore this. Okay, so enough with the motherboard. I'll put that aside. So you can see the rest of it is fairly straightforward. And I'm going to remove the PSU as well, just because I do want to get that all kind of cleaned out. And to do that, it's just a couple screws in the back, and it's kind of hard for you guys to see on camera because of how I have this laid out. But along the back, there are 4 screws that you remove. So I'm going to get that removed right now. Okay, here's our PSU. It is a light on. I mean, these were fairly reliable back in the day. I hope it continues to be so. Now, let's pull this out. There we are. So we have that out of the way now, and I will get that all cleaned up. Okay, so we're at a place now that the PSU has been removed, and we have a lot more access to things, see where everything kind of goes. I have the back removed because I wanted to see where that went, that extra power. It looks like the power is plugged directly in. I mean, I don't know if that powers the front of the case. I think there's some lighting here that goes on in the front of the case that powers, to be honest. I think it's just more of a decorative thing. Again, it's not labeled, so I have to go by what I'm seeing. But I took the other side panel off, and you can see all the dirt that kind of gets accumulated in these cases over time. Okay, so we're all ready to clean up the case. I know I had indicated I was going to be taking off the front bezel, but I tried to do that, and I noticed some rivets in here going through the front, so I don't know what that's about. I don't know if they're directly to the cage, but I know that taking it off it proved to be extremely difficult. So we are going to work around some of that, get a lot of this cleaned out, at least 98% of it clean. But yeah, we'll get all the nooks and crannies that we can. So you know what? Enjoy a lot of this montage. We're going to go right through cleaning the case. So here we are with the motherboard and all the components all cleaned up in the computer. We've done a really good job of getting the chassis cleaned as well. I mean, a lot of nooks and crannies inside here I was able to get with the rubbing alcohol and the Windex, and we were able to get all that cleaned out. Definitely a huge improvement as to what was there. For the motherboard and the components itself, we were able to get all of this cleaned up, and it's looking very, very, very nice. A lot of shiny now. All that extra dirt that was sitting inside the RAM slots have now been removed. I know there was a RAM problem in this computer originally, probably because of the amount of dirt that was sitting inside there. Even with contact cleaner, you don't get all that out. So it's important to get that all scrubbed out. I was able to take this all apart, get this all cleaned up, and took that housing off. And I'm going to leave it off. I like the look of this way better. And also we applied brand new MX4 Arctic compound. So that's been all applied. And I learned my lesson a long time ago. You don't do that on camera. All right, so I have that all put together, all cleaned up. So the next steps is to get this, get the bench all kind of turned around again, get a different camera angle so we can start reassembly of this beautiful Acer Multimedia desktop PC. Okay, here we are on our next part of our adventure, which is getting everything put back into the chassis itself. And as you can see, everything is looking really, really nice. So I was able to get the power supply all cleaned up as well. Didn't really show that on camera, didn't really feel the need to do that, but it is all cleaned out. Took it all apart and got everything where it needed to be. So all the capacitors and everything look good in it. For the age of the computer, there was nothing overwhelmingly surprising to me, so I'm going to be reusing the same power supply. Okay, so the power supply is all mounted, just 4 screws in the back, nothing nothing fancy. I just kind of did that off camera because it was kind of hard to film and get in there and get it all aligned to where it needs to go. So we'll tidy all that up in a bit once we get the motherboard installed. So next thing we're going to do is, well, get the motherboard installed, as I mentioned. Now, there was a kind of like a grounding plane that's missing here. I'm just going to put it back on. We got that in place. That's all good. And generally what holds that in place is the covers that go on there. So we don't have that installed yet. So we're going to have to wait for that right now. Get rid of all these extra wires, put them aside because the motherboard's going to go in next. I love the layout of this case. Like I said, it can handle other motherboards by the looks of things. So if you ever wanted to do that, you could. We're going to be utilizing the same one because I'm happy with the configuration. And, well, again, keeping it as close to, you know, original as possible. Okay, let's get this motherboard put in here. And you just got to rock it in there just to kind of get back into place. Don't force anything. Just go in. There's a couple other objects in my way here because we have some wire management. We have the power supply wires there. Just going to navigate through them and then go through. So you go through the back I/O shield first. There we are. And you can see that we have that all back in. And all those pieces are grounding properly. When I say grounding is all these pieces of metal you can see that touch the housings of the rear I/O, as well as the back plate is touching all of the connectors there. So we want to make sure we have all that in place. And then also you want to check to make sure all your screw holes are all aligned and they look all good. All right, time to get these all screwed in. Okay, so we have the motherboard all mounted, and what I generally do is keep all the screws loose until they're all threaded and screwed in. That way you're not cross-threading anything, and then I go and I tighten everything up. Okay, so we have that installed now, which is great, and I'm just gonna get this 4-pin connector put in because it was kind of wrapped around this housing anyway. I'm just gonna pop that in here. That way we don't forget about that. I tend to forget installing that on occasion. So we'll get that down around the heatsink itself. And then the same thing with the main power connector, the ATX power connector to the motherboard, and get the interface cable connected back to the digital audio out, get that all connected and continue to, well, get everything kind of put all back together. So here we go. Okay, so we're in a really good spot right now. We have all the wiring all cleaned up. The data cable is all the electrical going to the optical as well as the SSD I've installed here. I just use an SSD drive cage. Toolless design, pretty straightforward. Pop it in, pop the connectors on, you're good to go. We have 8 gigabytes of memory installed, so 2 and 2 of like-minded memory. I believe it's DDR2 667, 6400U memory we have installed. We also have the 4-pin header for the CPU power as well as the CPU fan plugged into the motherboard. We have our optical audio connected, all the USB for the front headers, front USB, the 1394 connection, the front panel power as well. So we have it all connected. Now we do have a brand new coin cell battery. We're going to pop in. There we are. Okay, I have it installed there, no problem. I think I had it in backwards. So we have that installed now. Now, another thing is I'm not putting the DVI add-in card again because I do have a different video card I want to use. We do have this card by Gigabyte. It is a GV-NX7G512PRH. I believe this is on the NVIDIA chipset. I believe it is. Now, that said, I did have a GeForce GTS 250 here as well. Unfortunately, due to the size of the card, I'm not able to get it past the memory sticks. So this is just what I had on hand for this build. So I'm going to pop this in nice and easily. And whatever it is going to be better than what we have currently. Okay, we have that installed. All right, let's put that plastic bracket back on. We have that installed now, so that's going to hold everything into place. We have our nice new video card that's installed. And if you recall, I did a video on this video card actually. I ended up recapping the card because we had some issues playing games. Okay, I think we are good now. So let's get the bench all kind of turned around and see if we can get at least get the system to post and troubleshoot any sort of errors we may have, assuming that, well, assuming if I didn't make any. All right, let's go. Welcome back. We're all set up on the bench with our beautiful Acer Multimedia desktop PC that's been all clean and scrubbed down. I have the side panel back on, not on this side yet because, again, we don't know if it's going to turn on without me having to go back into it and do some work. But it's just looking absolutely wonderful. I haven't peeled these off just yet. We're going to wait for the big reveal at the end, but really excited to get into this and continue to use it. So let's hit the power button and see what happens. I just have the HP monitor, keyboard, and mouse hooked up. I don't have a lot of that Acer stuff, especially not the the darker color. I usually have the beige one. So I'm just going to hit the power button and see what happens. Now this system was notorious for memory problems. Oh, I heard a post beep. We have posts. We have Acer empowering people. So I didn't have to do anything. We have delete to enter setup, or F12, I think it was, to boot. All right, sure enough, we expected this because we don't have the date and time set correctly. So we have CMOS settings wrong, CMOS date time not set, and press F1 to run setup. And here we are. We have a fully working desktop after we completely did a dissection on it, took everything out of the computer, did a complete wipe down, scrubbed everything down, and put it all back together. You know, the only thing I'll notice is because I have the side panel off, the fan is quite loud, but that's going to go away eventually when I put that panel back on. Under product information, let's double check some things. So our processor is an Intel Core 2 Quad, 8200 running at 2.33 gigahertz with our 8 gigabytes of memory. So it did detect that, which is nice. We have our model information here, the Acer Aspire 5700, the M5700. Our BIOS release date is 10/8/2008. I have to double check to see if we have any sort of updated BIOS information that we could potentially download and work on this computer. I had to double check that. Under our standard CMOS features, we have our system date and time. So I'm going to get this all set up right now. Okay, we have our date and time all set. We're going to go to advanced BIOS features. So we do have our quick boot enabled. Allows BIOS to skip certain tests while booting. That's fine. And enabled is, I'm going to go ahead and go to disable because I want to see the post messages. We have our first device is, our first boot device, I should say, is our Kingston SSD. So that's great. And our second boot device is our DVD RAM or optical drive. And our third, of course, is going to be our generic compact. This is the multi-card reader that we have going on here. And I just noticed that the even the multi-card reader has a bunch of plastic around it. That has never been removed. I just noticed that now. And then we have our LAN as our fourth device. That's fine. Now, we're good with that for now, because I do have the option at the very beginning of the system to hit F12 and choose an alternate boot device. Okay, that is great. Integrated peripherals. So we have our SATA controllers enabled, set to RAID. We're not going to do anything else with that right now. We have all our USB legacy support installed. We have onboard audio enabled, which is fine. Our LAN controller is enabled, and we have our 1394 enabled as well as our floppy controller. And I forgot to mention, that's the nice thing about this board. It has both SATA and our regular floppy as well as IDE connectors directly on the motherboard. So it gives us a really good range of upgradability and backwards compatibility as well. I generally don't do anything with the power management setup. Our CPU temperature is currently running at 31 degrees Celsius, which is just more than fine. System fan speed running at 4,000 RPM. And then we have our voltages, which according to this is looking pretty good. So I'm happy with that. And we have our brand new battery installed. Frequency voltage control, we're not going to do anything with that at the moment. And we're going to save and exit setup. Okay. So I hit pause, and you can see that one of the messages I wanted to see was the dual channel mode. So we do have our memory installed, the 8 gigs, but it is running on at dual channel, and that's our DDR2 667. So it's important to find like memory if you can. So I did a big hunt to try to find that in my stash. So we do have all this stuff. And then we have Dell for our to run our setup, or we can hit the F12 to choose our boot priority. So I am going to do the boot sequence though, but before I go into that, I just want to mention, so this hard disk here was the hard disk that came with the system initially, right? So this is the original hard disk. I'm going to store this away. I'm going to mark on it to tell you what system it is. That way I have it. But this has a lot of personal information installed or on it. But on top of that, it actually has the Acer eRecovery or e-management software. So from that, believe it or not, it had no record of ever being created. So through the the joys of before they started recording this video, I was able to go in and completely create a set of recovery DVDs. Now, I mean, laugh at me. I have these cases that I got from Goodwill or from the thrift store that I just said, well, I have them, I may as well use them. So it says Acer E5720A Recovery 1 all the way to number 2 of 3, and then we have 3 of 3. So we have a recovery DVDs that we are going to use today. And we also have strictly an app driver DVD. So I guess this was more rare because most people would just do the full install versus just the app and app and driver recovery. So anyway, I have all that, which is wonderful, and I will be uploading these to archive because I have done extensive search and I could not find them. So here we go. They'll be online. Now, after all that, a whole bunch can be done to this computer. We now have a 8 gigs of RAM instead of the 4 gigabytes that it came with. We now have an SSD. I believe it's a 1 terabyte versus the 640 gigabyte platter drive that we had there originally. We kept the CPU the way it is, which is more than fine for what we're going to be doing with it. And then we have the built-in audio, or the integrated audio, the integrated LAN, and we upgraded the video card a bit. So, you know, I would say that we could probably bring this to today's internet, today's world by, you know, installing some distro Linux on here. Some would argue that you can put Windows 10 on here as well and get that going, no problem, running with the SSD, the 8 gigs of RAM and what have you. You know, to me, that's boring though, to be honest, because I have a system, I have other systems that I can bring to Windows 10, and I have, you know, a whole bunch of different systems we can test with Linux and things like that. But particularly this computer brings me right back into the, you know, the late 2000s. And when, you know, these sort of systems were being built, being an OEM system, especially with the original plastic still on the tower and stuff, I really wanted to try to restore this back to what would, I guess, be kind of an upgraded restoration of an original system. So I'm going to do that today. I'm going to pop the original DVD in that, well, I created via the software that was the recovery software that was installed. And I would like to do that today on this video and restore this computer back to the way it was when it would have been purchased, including all that beautiful bloatware that we all like. And I know not a lot of people do like that. And at the time, I know I didn't, but this is definitely something that I wanted to try out anyway. Okay, so Windows is loading files. That's good. So it did detect the recovery DVD, which is wonderful. And ideally, it's going to guide me right through the installation. So we get to do that together today. Okay, and here we are successfully with the recovery partition being restored. So it says elapsed time is, well, 1 minute, and time left about 45 minutes. Well, we're just going to sit back and let this go through its full install, and we'll be back here in, well, for you, it'll be a few seconds. Here we go. Okay, and here we are at the setup. This is Windows Vista Home Premium. We have Canada, English, and keyboard layout is US. You see the Acer logo, obviously branded by Acer. We'll hit next, and we say yes because it does come back with the Service Pack 1. Name is going to be TRR. Password is going to be super safe password. And password. Okay, and we're going to select a little puppy. Let's go over there, hit next. It's fine. We'll do the typical Windows Vista background. We'll use recommended settings. We'll go to Atlantic time, which is my time zone. Offers, thank you. Set up your McAfee internet security. No, we're good. Net zero internet access. Get high quality internet service for the best possible price. Unlimited plans. Start only at $4.97 per month. No, I'm good, but I did do a video on Net Zero, so if you haven't seen that, it's pretty cool. Using the dial-up modem, they do have the service still available today. Alrighty then, so we are at the Windows desktop with, looks like Windows Vista has been installed. And of course, it is in the process of installing the Acer software automatically. I thought I was going to have to put in the app and driver disk, but apparently it did that as part of the install, as part of the image, the restoration image. So it's doing that right now. It's currently installing the TV Tuner HVR 1200 software. So that's all fine. But yeah, so I mean, I just love this look. I've always loved the look of Windows Vista personally. You know, I know it got a lot of flack back in the day, but I personally did not have any issues with it because I always kept my drivers up to date, and I had hardware that was actually capable of running the operating system. So it says here, Windows Vista Home Premium, Intel Core Quad CPU 8200, Q8200 at 2.33 gigahertz with 8 gigs of RAM. It did detect our NVIDIA GeForce 7600 GS dedicated graphics card that we did install in place of that DVI Braco card. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. That just would use the onboard chipset, but I wanted to give it a little more horsepower specifically for the graphics. But of course, I mentioned before, we did upgrade our memory to 8 gigs as well. Clicking on show more details is giving us a system score of 4.8, which would be, I believe, the lowest setting, and this would be our graphics. Yeah, and there'd be better video cards out there at the time that you could get, which would improve that anymore. I don't know how many people actually did this. I know I played around with it, and of course, I don't know if it was a thing, that marketing thing that tried to get you to encourage you to upgrade your computer even more. Under Device Manager, let's go ahead and jump in there real quickly while it's installing the software. So it did install all the drivers by the looks of things. Disk drives, we have all of our USB devices installed. We have our card reader in the front. We have our Kingston, which is our 960 gigabyte SSD. Display adapters are NVIDIA GeForce 7600 GS. I do have Service Pack 2 ready to install on this. I will be doing that shortly. I'm not sure what driver is currently installed, but you know, I even have Snappy driver installer installed on this USB stick, so just in case. So sometimes it does come with the latest drivers for that driver, or sorry, for that video card. Continuing on, we have our 1394 connection, our mice, of course. Network adapters is just an Intel gigabit network connection, so no slouch. We still have a gigabit internet connection that we could potentially plug into this system. Our CPU, our quad core, which is nice. Sound is just a Realtek high definition audio. Now keep in mind, we do have those two PCI slots that are still available, the expansion slots on the motherboard. So if we wanted to install some sort of like Creative Labs AW64 or something like that, we could in there if we needed to. And of course, we have all of our USB hubs, you know, which is what we have going on up at the very top here, which we had shown at the beginning of the video, which we could, well, essentially go in and pop a, smaller form factor drive under this little hatch and plug it in through the front USB, which is wonderful. All right, so it's nice to see all the hardware is automatically installed, and that's the nice thing about using an image, is that, it was built for this PC. The image automatically installs the drivers. You may not always get this in a restoration, so you can install Windows 7, Windows 10. Ideally, it would pick up all the hardware profiles, install the proper drivers, but sometimes there's just that one or two system devices that just don't get picked up. So that's why they have driver applications like Snappy Driver Installer and other things. But for me, wanting to get era specific when the system was built, being able to restore it back to factory to what it would have been is exactly what I'm looking for at this moment. Of course, it automatically activates your Windows because it knows what you have using the restoration. Okay, we're back to the desktop after all of the installation was completed through the Acer eRecovery management system. And again, I'll throw these on archive.org. But one thing I do want to call out is the Acer app driver DVD was not required, so it included it as part of that image, even though it did create a separate DVD just for that. I'll upload all of it anyway in case you need it for one reason or another. So one thing I'll call out is it did come with Service Pack 1. I was able to upgrade to Service Pack 2, no problem. I just went to the Microsoft website, downloaded Service Pack 2 and installed it. The other thing I want to call out is I use Snappy Driver Installer because I wanted to update the drivers for the system. It picked out many of them because, the latest drivers for this probably around 2009 based on the file extensions I was seeing. So the video card is a perfect example of that, where I was able to go in and update that driver to 2015, for example. And that's perfect. So I was able to get the drivers updated even past, being able to use the system. Why? Well, it makes it even more stable. And that's one of the things one of the challenges people had back in the day is things were crashing, there were problems with the system, it wasn't working right, it was slow, a whole slew of things that gave Vista the reputation it has. And keeping the drivers up to date was critical at the time, as well as having a system with the proper hardware to be able to run the operating system. And again, because most times the systems were sold saying Windows Vista ready, and that gave the consumers, due to a marketing tactic, gave the consumers the impression that the systems were ready. Yes, it would install, but doesn't necessarily mean it would run as well as you would hope it would, being a new operating system. Okay, so we have everything installed. I wanted to call out the service pack 2. I wanted to call out the driver DVD was not required, so it automatically installed it. And again, Snappy Driver Installer is a wonderful project for anyone who hasn't used it before. It works quite well. All right, so picture yourself, you know, you're just a run-of-the-mill user. You're not a power user, you're not a system builder, you don't do custom OEM systems. You do have the ability to go down to Walmart, Staples, Best Buy, whatever, and you see this on the shelf back in 2008, 2009, and you see this system, you're like, you know what, I'm going to bring it home with me. Looks awesome, and let's see what it comes with, you know, being an OEM system. And OEM systems back in the day were generally touted as being, you know, limited systems of some sort in terms of to be able to expand those systems. Well, we have an example in front of us that Acer did not seem to limit that. We have a motherboard with the IDE compatibility for backwards compatibility, as well as a floppy connector, but we also have the SATA connectors here as well. We also have the expansion for another optical drive. We have a multi-card reader. We have multiple USB ports. We have the optical audio. We have the expansion capability for the extra RAM that we installed because we went from 4 gigs to 8 gigs. We threw in an SSD on top of all that. Plus we have that PCIe 16 express lane that we are able to use to install the additional video card, which we've done to add dedicated graphics. I don't know about you, but in terms of an OEM system, I think that's pretty upgradable. Not to mention it doesn't look too bad either. Let's take a look at the bloatware that we would call it back in the day that would be installed, that most people would go and go, heck, I don't want that on my computer. I'm going to get rid of it. Because more often than not, if your hardware wasn't up to snuff, it would definitely slow down the system for you. Okay, I'm going to move my mouse up here and click on it, and we have a couple icons along the top. We have the Acer Data Security Management out of the box. So you're able to go in here and encrypt your data essentially. It allows you to go in and be able to set up and encrypt your data right out of the box, which is a nice feature. Going into Acer settings management. So here it just gives you a full overview of your system. So right out of the box, able to go up on that very top window here, just drop down through the GUI, and you're able to see basically a summary of your system. Everything, all the hardware that's been installed in the computer, the processor, the memory, the multimedia that you have installed. There's our video card, the dedicated graphics. There's our network. We don't have anything plugged into it right now, but we do have that all there. All the options are there. We have our boot options, so it goes in here. You can see what order to boot. You can actually rearrange them if you want, if you wanted to change the boot order, which is neat because then it would go back and allow it to do that. BIOS password, you're able to go in and add it if you want. And then we have monitoring as well. So we're able to go in and check our temperature. This is real live monitoring, all built within the system right out of the box, which is great. And especially for someone who may not be a power user, these are great little features running in the background that allows you to monitor your system closely. Okay, on top of that, it gives you a whole bunch of stuff on the desktop here. And, you know, a lot of these things are the things that, you know, what I'm saying is most people would say, you know what, I don't want this on my computer. I don't want Acer Arcade Live. I don't want Acer Game Zone console, you know, all those things. But these are things that came with the system and were very, very common with these OEM systems. And depending on what OEM you went with, you had a different variety or different suite of that software. And that's what I like to do on these sort of videos, is restore the systems back to the way they were, give them a little more horsepower, in this case we did, and see what sort of things came with the computer, because I think that's pretty neat back in the day. So we have Acer Arcade Live, Acer Game Zone Console, CyberLink Live, so I believe that's the CyberLink DVD creator. We have Empowering Technology, which is along the top here, which we saw. We have eSobi version 2, Getting Started with Microsoft Works. So it gives you a trial version of Microsoft Works, right? So it gets you in the door, and then you can, through the application, through your internet connection, purchase the software, because you can still go to the store and get the software in box form. And you know, what do you mean? I don't have to leave the seat of my chair and my desk, and I can order the software. So in McAfee Security Center for your virus scan. So it gives you like a 30-day or a 60-day or a 90-day trial here. And then after that, it'll of course ask you to upgrade. And then Microsoft Office 60-day trial online. So again, you would double click that. It's already pre-installed. It gives you a license for 60 days. And then you're able to do the same thing as you were to with Microsoft Works. Okay, let's go into the start menu for a moment and take a look at what we have. So we have your standard Windows Vista stuff, nothing too fancy other than what we just clicked on above. Windows Live Messenger download. Remember that? Windows Live, what are we doing that day? We have Acer Assist, so just basically an online help if you're having any issues with your computer, you jump in here. And that was a nice thing about some of these OEM systems is that it guided you through some of the, whether it's the operating environment you're using or the software that you're asking about. Acer registration, if you wanted to register your system, came pre-loaded with Adobe Reader 8, which is handy, especially if you're just using your system right out of the box, being able to use a PDF reader versus having to go download it. Default programs right out of the box. So Dolby Control Center, let's click on that real quick. So this system is promoting that it's a Dolby Home Theater. Well, here we are. We have the ability through headphones, or because I have the headphones currently plugged in. Well, I'm using the headphone jack, I should say, just for the audio of the system. Again, because it was easier to reach as opposed to going behind the system. We also have the ability to choose digital output or SPDIF. It'd be pretty awesome hooking up this whole system directly to, it is a multimedia desktop PC. That's what they're saying this system is promoting it as. And this is just a great feature to have, connecting it right into a digital receiver, for example, via the SPDIF cable, and bam, you have a full audio system in front of you, home theater system. I think that's pretty neat. And you go in here and configure it based on what you want the sound to sound like, depending on where you are in the room. And then, of course, it says here, if you're switching between outputs, go to the sound panel to make sure your desired output level or default is on. This can be done by right-clicking. It gives you all the instructions. I think that's pretty cool. Right out of the box. All right, let's see what else we have going on here. Under Internet Explorer, we have, I believe, version 8 is what came with this computer back in the day. Microsoft PowerPoint, Viewer, Microsoft Works Task Launcher, Net Zero Internet. We saw that earlier as an option to install dial-up. Windows Calendar, Windows Contacts, Windows Defender. So that would be the equivalent of, whatever third-party software you'd have, whether it's through McAfee or through Norton and things like that at the time. Here we are with Windows Defender, Microsoft's version of it. And they started to incorporate that into the system. We have Windows Live OneCare and things like that back in the day as well. We have Windows DVD Maker, so you can make your own DVDs. We have Windows Live Messenger Download, Windows Mail, Windows Media Center. So we're talking Windows Media Center right out of the box. I didn't have a lot of experience with Windows Media Player, to be honest with you, because I did a video on this and I was actually very surprised when I had gone through it. Picturing this plugged into your home theater system, and this is your computer plugged into your TV as well, using the digital outputs on the video card, and all of a sudden now you're using this system on your TV through your computer, playing TV, movies, music, going through your slideshows. I think this is just absolutely great. Think about where you were back in the day going through this. I think that's great that it actually comes with Windows Media Center pre-installed out of the box. Okay, let's keep on going here. We have Windows Media Player, Windows Meeting Space, Windows Movie Maker, which was really made its debut in Windows Millennium Edition. That was something that people really liked. That was a part of that feature, and of course got carried through. Windows Photo Gallery, Windows Update, so you obviously do all your Windows updates. Plus, this has the ability, this is Windows Home Premium. You can go to Windows Ultimate through the Windows Anytime upgrade as well. I personally liked getting the box copies of them, but either way, Windows Home Premium was something that came with a little more features than your Windows Basic or your Windows Vista Home editions came with. Okay, so we have accessories. We have the Acer. Under the Acer, we covered a lot of those things that we already have included. So it's Acer Arcade Live. So you're able to go in here and go DV Magician. So capture videos from camcorders directly. Slideshow DVD. Create slideshow DVDs in 5 easy steps. DV Divine. So burn home videos and photos on DVDs. Video Magician. So they're really promoting the multimedia aspect of this computer. And this is Acer's version of, well, I mean, it gives us this interface, which is very similar to the Media Center edition of Windows that we have the ability. And if you click on this little home button up here, all of a sudden it brings you right into Media Center. So it's just really connected to each other, which I think is absolutely great. Okay, I'm going to close that for now, and then we're going to close that as well. So that's the Acer Arcade Live that comes with. Acer Game Zone. So here we are. We have the Game Zone console we're going to jump into. So this is just one of those things, again, that you'd probably end up just getting rid of on your computer. Most people did because they felt it was just something that they wouldn't really pop into. But a lot of people as well adopted this. This is, a bunch of games, recommended games that's giving me. But if you want to go into certain genres, you can go into action, arcade, puzzle games, Mahjong as well, Word, games, card games, all this is all great. And some of these are available as part of this package. Others you had to actually go and download if you want. I'm going to say and bet that the download is probably not available today, but I did go in here actually earlier and where did it go? It's under, I believe under Word. Yeah, I was able to go in here and it actually loaded up. I can actually go in and play the demo of the game. So it's just a Word game that's part of the software. I think this is pretty awesome. So watch out, don't let burning tiles reach the bottom. They will set the library on fire. Click continue. So here you're able to go in and go, okay, so I'm going to go TREAR. No. So do we have anything else? So obviously these will fall as they go through. So you're supposed to go in here and pick out letters. So BORN, so I'm born, 440 points. Hey, it's me. Okay, great. Awesome. Uh-oh, it's moving down. So TO, trying to get rid of that T. Nothing yet. Everyone's probably screaming at the screen right now going, choose this, choose that. So we'll go there we go. We have there 650 points. Now we have a bonus tile that appeared. Use that green tile in a word for extra bonus points. All right, let's go, because I feel like I'm on a timer with this guy over here. Because you don't want to go to the bottom because it will destroy your game card. So T-E-L. Okay, tell, sure. There we go. Oh, did it work? Yeah, there we go. We got rid of that burning tile, so that's good. So anyway, you can see how out of nowhere you get lost in this using the bonus points, but you get lost in these type of games. And these are the types of games that basically came with your computer right out of the box. You didn't have to do anything to go purchase. It just came as an OEM system. And OEMs really pushed the price points down on these systems and really gave the other competitors a run for their money, often taking losses so that you could go into this sort of software and purchase add-ons, or they would get you in the door and make more money through their software and other expansions. Okay, so continuing on, that was Acer Game Zone. We have Acer System. It's just our user guide. We have the eSolby version 2. We have extras and upgrades. So here's what I was mentioning earlier. So we have the ability to do a Windows Anytime upgrade. So you can upgrade to, say, Windows Ultimate, for example. Windows Marketplace, so you can download additional software. And then, of course, the Windows website. So they plugged that right in there for you. Under games, we had, of course, a pile of games that were actually included with Windows Vista. Spider Solitaire, Minesweeper, Mahjong Titans, Inkball, Hearts, Games Explorer, Free Cell, Chess Titans, all those games, all brings back tons of memories. Intel Matrix Storage Manager. So this is our Matrix Storage console. I believe that's where the RAID is all controlled through. NTI Backup Now. So it came with backup software that you're able to use and essentially go in and back up your system. And most people did not do that, to be honest. And then we have NTI Media Maker 8. So we have audio editor, digital jack, so you can take advantage of the digital jack, whether, I don't know if that's just an output or it's an input as well. DVD Fit, Jewel Case Maker, NTI Media Maker 8, Photo Maker, and Ripper. Yeah, so it gives you a full multimedia option using the optical drive, obviously the onboard audio that comes with it, and all those good features. So I think this, we're talking out of the box here. This system that's been fully restored, which, by the way, I mean, I'm not doing a whole lot with it right at the moment, and all these pieces of software that come with the computer right out of the box. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that if you had your system properly configured, properly spec'd in terms of all your drivers and all of your hardware, everything that you had installed as part of your system, and you had everything kind of upgraded where you felt it was pretty good, then I think that you're running into a really good mix. Now, the unfortunate thing, OEMs also were known for, this wouldn't have been one of their entry levels, but they had entry level systems that were sporting Windows Vista with 2 gigabytes of memory, which would just drag on this, a dual core CPU versus quad, for example, or even slower, some of the Celeron variants of those. And unfortunately, it just really dragged these systems down where, unfortunately, you were just feeling the pain, and Vista was targeted where it may have run okay with Windows XP at the time. Unfortunately, would not run with Windows Vista, unfortunately. So it gave us that bad taste. All right, enough of that. We did very well bringing the computer up to this level, but the question is, can it run Crysis? Let's go.
Let me run a quick diagnostic. The video feed is breaking up. I'm going to try to recalibrate. All right, the suit checks out. You're back online. Still no word from Aztec. Nomad, rendezvous with Jester and head to Aztec's location. Check your objectives display. silencers attached. Careful, Nomad. Enemy contact up ahead.
And here we are at the end of our video, restoring our Acer Multimedia desktop, the AM5700-E5720A system, and this was saved from e-waste. And there's only one thing left to do here, is to take off the stickers off of the protective coating off of this amazing PC that's been sitting there getting ready to be dismantled and scrapped and now rescued for another day. And I think this is absolutely great to have this ability to do this and restore these types of systems. And you know what? The computers of the time, this is major nostalgia for me. And you can see how we upgraded it slightly. We upgraded it from the 4 gig to the 8 gigs of memory. We put an SSD in there. We were able to install a dedicated graphics card in that PCI Express 16 slot as well. And we have the world of expansion when it comes to all the USB ports, the digital audio out. We have a whole bunch of software to make that happen. And even if you didn't want to stick with this and use Windows Vista for, for nostalgic reasons or for fun or even from games at that time, you're able to take this to another level by installing a distribution of Linux on it or even Windows 10 in some cases. So I think that absolutely opens up the possibility that even hardware that's 16, 17 years old is still able to be running today. And you saw that in this video. We did a complete restoration on this computer, and I think it looks absolutely great. And sometimes you're able to find some of these out in the wild that are in really great shape, and you can do this too as well. And we did answer the question, it can run Crysis. If you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Makes a world of difference, helps this channel grow, tells YouTube you like what you're seeing. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Please leave a comment down below. Did you own one of these Acer Multimedia desktop PCs back in the day? Do you own one today? Are you using it today? Let me know down in the comments. Do you think we should have done something completely different with it? I love the interaction on the channel. I respond to absolutely every comment. Always making new content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.